Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lara, or Lara Likes Mascara. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Blush Roulette update. Blush Roulette is my main project for the year 2024. I have been doing various kinds of makeup projects over the past few years. Project Pan, Graveyard Project Pan, Lipstick Project Pan. And so for this year, I wanted to do one that had a little bit of a different focus. Not so much on actually using products up, because that is what project panning is, but trying to look more at my collection as a whole and get to use products and not specifically just be intent on panning them, but just try to get better use out of the things that I have that are nowhere near getting panned. And I have loved this project so much that I am planning to do different versions of it in future. So I'm already thinking about 2025 and how I can do a focus project, not focused on blush because obviously that's what I'm doing this year, but I'm thinking I will do one focused on like under-loved products, which is kind of what the Graveyard Project Pan is supposed to be. You're supposed to be focused on products that you never reach for and you've had for a long time and they just are underappreciated. But I turn that more into a project pan and I make it about my older products that I am close to finishing or hoping to finish. So yeah, next year, keep your eyes out for a project where I try to specifically use the products that I never use, and not with the goal of panning them, just with the goal of getting better use out of them. I think project panning is great, but I also think it's great to not just always be focused on using products up. And so this Blush Roulette, this is my third update. The first video, I just talked about the focus blushes for the first 4 months, and then the next update I talked about how that went at the beginning of the year and the next few focused blushes that I would use. So it is now July when I'm filming this, and so I have had 6 months of blushes so far. I'm currently in my 7th month, obviously, so I'm on my 7th blush of the year, and I will give an update on how many blushes this project has actually enabled me to declutter. I'm doing way better than I even expected. I sort of had in mind, oh, like maybe, you know, it'd be great if I decluttered 1 or 2 blushes that I don't love anymore. I'm hoping that this project gives me the power to do that. I think we're decluttering 4 of the blushes so far. 4 out of 7. That is more than half. That's wild. So anyways, I am just going to take it month by month, talk about my experience with the blushes over the past few months, and then talk about the next few blushes that I will be focusing on in the project. Oh my god, and I have to give this update right now. Okay, the reason, you might be counting in your head if you watch these videos and you're counting with me, and you might be thinking, wait, I didn't realize you decluttered that many blushes. Okay, just yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, the last time that I put on bronzer, that wasn't today, when I was using this, I hit a baby pan. Look at that bronzer. That one right there. It's small, but it's there. And when I used it again today, it only got bigger. I obviously use it as bronzer, and I use a little bit in my crease just to confirm to myself that that was a pan. My agreement with myself was that I would not use the blushes anymore. Those were in my brain decluttered, but I liked the bronzer enough that I wanted to get some more use out of it to see how I felt, and I really wanted to hit pan because I thought I was somewhat close. So when this left my Blush Roulette focus, I think this was my March blush. Since then, I have been working on the bronzer, using this every day that I do makeup pretty much as my bronzer. And so yeah, 3 months of use later, I ended up hitting pan. So it's time for this to get decluttered. I'm saying goodbye to it. So that means that the blushes that have been decluttered were that Tarte palette, you remember? Actually, it's just over there, I can grab it. So the blushes that I have decluttered are this Tarte palette, this Collection palette, this NYX blush, and the other NYX blush that was in this packaging. I actually already traded it on Bun, somebody wanted it. And so I have decluttered 4 blushes so far, thanks to my Blush Roulette. How crazy is that? And then the 3 that I still have are Exposed, Milani Luminoso, and my Hourglass blush, which is in this drawer, so I don't feel like getting it right now. So 4 gone, 3 kept. Pretty amazing odds. But let's talk about how these blushes have gone. So I do just briefly want to talk about one of the blushes that I talked about last time, because when I filmed the video, it was actually partway through the month, so I hadn't had that much time with the blush. It was the Hourglass palette, Ambient Light palette. I don't love that palette, and if it wasn't high end, if I hadn't paid quite a bit for it, I would be decluttering it, because I don't love all the shades. There's 3 shades. One of them I really like, the other 2 I don't like that much. So that's probably one that I will declutter at some point, but I need to get more use out of it. 1 month was not enough, so it's not getting decluttered this year. Also, because I've decluttered so many other blushes, I don't feel like, oh, I need to be like really, really cutthroat. It's fine if one that I'm sort of on the fence about stays around. So yeah, by the end of the month, I decided not to declutter, and that is kind of what I had predicted in that previous video. Today is July 7th, so I've, again, only had a week with the blush that I'm currently working on, but I already had a lot of experience with this blush. I know how I feel about it, so I feel like I can give a fulsome discussion of that blush. Okay, and then the first blush that I talked about for this update was this one. I am glad to say that this is leaving my collection. This is the NYX blush in Rose Garden. There is no glass here. I talked about how this would for sure be getting decluttered, even if I, at the end of the month, decided I didn't want to. I was going to force myself. However, it didn't come to that. 4 days into the project, I wanted it gone already. I did give it the full month. I think I allowed myself to reach for other blushes quite a bit during that month, but I did really still want to give this the full month effectively. But yeah, this is getting decluttered. I really enjoyed it, but it really is time to go. And I did talk about this in an empties video, so this should come as no surprise to anyone who watches my other videos. But glad to say that I did not fall further in love with it, and I'm fine with saying goodbye to it. The next one, my June blush. Yes, I just finished using this. This is the Tarte Exposed blush. This is one of the Amazonian clay ones. This is a full size. Just for comparison, this is a mini. And apparently these were made in different factories, the minis and the large sizes, because their formulas are completely different. I've said that before, and people are like, yeah, it's because they don't make them the same way, which makes no sense. And it's also really deceiving, because everyone got these from that Sephora birthday gift all those years ago, fell in love, and then went on to buy the full size and were like, wait, this isn't as good. I don't like this anymore. It's because they're different. But I thought I was going to declutter this because I hadn't liked it when I used it in the past, but this month I actually really, really did enjoy using it. It just meant removing the hard pan pretty frequently. As you can see there's quite a bit of hard pan, despite the fact that I used tape to remove some at the beginning of the month. I used a spoolie to remove some the last time I used it, actually. It's still got a bit of the pattern there, so obviously it could scrape more off, but there's not really any point because it's still going to get hard pan next time, you know, so I think it makes more sense every time to just scrape a little bit off. But this is a beautiful, beautiful shade. Let's see if I can swatch. It's really hard to swatch because of the hard pan. It's just such a nice nude. I don't have very many nudes in my collection. I just have this other Tarte one. And so it's nice to have something so light and just like minimal if I just want a little bit of blush. I should also swatch this NYX one. This one is more hot pink. I have a lot more hot pinks in my collection. So that is part of the reason that I didn't feel the need to declutter it. You can see it's a lot brighter there. And I'm much more into the like nude brown orange look of blush, and I don't have as many of those. So maybe one day when I get my blush collection down to a more comfortable size, I will look at potentially getting some more in different shades, but I think that day is still a while away. I still am quite overwhelmed by my blush collection. So those are those first two. And then the third one is the one that I'm focusing on now for July. Oh, I should probably also mention my makeup. I actually have been kind of into the like no eye makeup, but like face of makeup look lately for a more natural look, especially with a red lip. Somehow that works for me in a way that I think a red lip works worse when I have a full face of makeup on. I don't know. It might be the eyeshadow. Like, it's difficult to find an eyeshadow that works with red lipstick unless you're just doing like a very slight shimmer. But like, I wear a lot of colorful eyeshadows. But anyways, I would not wear this look like out if I had like a party or something. But I am starting a new job this week, as I mentioned in a previous video, and I think I would be fine with wearing this to the office. I've been thinking about that a lot because I haven't worked that kind of job in a while where people are seeing me every day, like in person. So I'm like, I used to always wear makeup every single day, full face, like not glam, but I would never go like this and I would never not do my foundation. But now I'm like, oh, do I feel like more comfortable in my skin and like my relationship to makeup to go without makeup, or like to do this where I do the face without the eyes, or to wear just a little bit of mascara and blush and like no face makeup, you know what I mean? I gotta figure that out. But it is good in one way because it means that I will be getting better use out of my makeup collection, I think, because now on the daily, I no longer do makeup if I'm staying at home. I just don't. So in this case, I think I will be using more of my makeup, and I will be using my blushes more, which is good because some weeks I'm thinking like, oh wow, like I only reached for that blush 3 times, you know, and I would ideally like to use the blush 5 times. Like, how am I gonna know how I feel about this blush if I only use it 2 times in a week and I only have a month to focus on it, and so that's 8 times. Like, that's not really getting that familiar with it. But anyways, I will be able to use them more in future. I do want to compare this blush, but I will swatch that a little bit later in the video. But for now, this is being kept. I'm really glad I gave it more time to see how I felt about it, because in the past when I would use it, I would just try it for like one day and be like, meh, I didn't, you know, like it that much. But by using this upwards of 10 times, I really got to know it better and just figured out that I had to really like dig in there with my brush in order to get it to show up. And also I have to remove the hard pan in order to get it to show up. So this is sticking around and I'm actually glad about that. I'm glad I gave it more of a chance. So the final blush in this round is the Milani Baked Blush in Luminoso. This is something that I used to use a lot. This used to be a cult makeup product. It has kind of come back. Like, people are buying it again now, / some people still have it, like myself. I got this a very long time ago. It's very old, but it's a powder blush. It doesn't expire. The formula has not changed. It's fine. And it really is a beautiful coral shade. Now, this is not something that I would buy today. Like, this is not my preference today. I will say that. Now, with this project, the way I organized it was actually the blushes that I liked the least at the beginning of the year, the products that I thought I was most likely to declutter, sort of get them out of the way, and then move on to the products I like the most. So out of all of the blushes so far this year, like out of these 7, this is the one that I like the most, and this next chunk of blushes will be ones that I like even more than this. But this is the first blush so far where I knew going in I would not be decluttering it. All of the others were kind of fair game because I didn't love any of them, and I knew that going in. So as expected, I'm not going to be decluttering this. Today I would buy something more orangey or brown or nudie, something much more like this, or even like the Glossier Cloud Paint in that orange shade, not Spark, like Sunset or something like that. This is just a bit too pink. I'm just not loving pink as much on the cheeks these days. Let's swatch it. It's also kind of more similar to a blush topper. It is very like powdery, but I wouldn't call it chalky, because it is a nice formula. But it's got so much like shimmer to it and dimension that I really can't use that much on the cheeks because it's just like, it's too glowy for me. Like, look at that. Look at the glow on that one and the pigment compared to the previous 2. It's a lot. It's definitely a different shade, which is great. You've got the hot pink there, the nude there, and then the coral color there. And it's just, yeah, it's got a lot of dimension. I think this one is better when I use a cream blush that's like super pigmented and then just top it off with a little bit of this. That's kind of what I did today. I did like a red cream blush. Actually, I did the NARS Lippy, very, very small amount of it because it is so pigmented. And then I topped it off with this. Now, you wouldn't think that these go well together, but if you use the right amount of any products, you can make blush work. I always do a cream blush followed by a powder blush just to get the most out of my products in my collection. I've really come to love that combination because I find that a cream blush doesn't necessarily last as well throughout the day, but it does look more natural. So if I use just a cream blush, it might not stay, but if I use just a powder blush, it's gonna look a little bit more cakey and sort of sitting on top of the skin by the end of the day, but combining them together works really well for me. So yeah, I do like this blush. I knew that going in. That has been confirmed. I hadn't reached for it, I said in the previous video, for like a year probably, so I still did obviously want to include it in this project, but I think it makes sense that it is July to use this one because, first of all, this is much more of a summery blush because it is so like kind of highlightery and glowy and makes more sense with a tan, but also because I have a couple of trips this month and I don't think this is going to be the one that I bring on the trip, and so I won't get as much use out of it as expected, but because I know how I feel about it, that's fine. I don't need to develop my feelings and see if I want to declutter or not. I know that this is staying in my collection. So I'm only 1 week in, but I already know how I feel about it. And yeah, if you haven't used this in a while, because it's summer, go reach for it. Use it as a blush topper. It's still a good one. I am actually pre-filming this. As I said, it's only a week into July, but I'm going to a friend's cottage for a long weekend, and I also am starting a new job this week, and I'm also going to a friend's wedding in Banff for about a week. So just a lot of stuff coming up in July, and I'm trying to keep on top of things. So that's why I'm filming this quite a bit earlier than anticipated. Now let's talk about the blushes that I will be using as my focus blushes for the next 3 months. Now, I will just say off the bat, I am not expecting to declutter any of these because I've left them till the end of the year. Like, these are my favorite blushes in my collection. I'm not sure which is like my favorite, but these are the top 4. So I could just be like, you know what, I don't need to include these in the blush roulette because I know how I feel about them. I'm not going to declutter them. But the point wasn't just to declutter the blushes. The point was also to get good use out of all the blushes in my collection, including the ones that I loved and the ones that I didn't love. And sometimes you have to give yourself permission to reach for the products that you love, which is so dumb, but like, I feel like this all the time that I'm like, no, I need to focus on my Project Pan items. I need to save the nice ones for a special occasion. But in this case, I am letting myself use each of these for a full month. So should I talk about the 4 remaining ones? I thought that I had 12 blushes, but now I'm like, okay, that's August, September, October, November. That's only 4. So like, what is going on here? I don't know. Am I forgetting about one of my blushes? Like, I must be. That's so dumb, but I feel like I must be forgetting about one of my blushes. That's very confusing, actually. I'm gonna be watching this back and like thinking I'm ridiculous. But anyways, let's talk about the next 4 months. What order do I want to do this in? Okay, I think what makes the most sense is to have the brightest pink one in August because, of course, you can wear whatever kind of makeup at whatever time of year, but I just think it makes more sense to wear bright pink in the summer. So this is the Kiko blush in Sunset Pomegranate, which I think is such a fun name. And you can see how much progress I've made on this because there is that etching on top. Not a ton. Let's swatch this one. This is definitely the most hot pink blush that I've still got in my collection, although the shade looks kind of similar to Milani Luminoso on my finger. Ooh, not on my hand though. Look at that hot pink. You see how bright that is? I remember really liking this, the color and the formula, but I have not reached for it probably over a year. So I am excited to get reacquainted with this blush in August. I think it's really cute packaging. I like the Kiko stuff that I've used before, and I need to give this another chance and some time to get reacquainted with it. I'm actually excited for that. Like, as I said, hot pink is not my favorite, but I still like it. I'll just tone it down a little bit. So this is my August blush. The blush that I will be using in September. Oof, choosing between 2. Okay, I think I'm gonna save my favorite 2 for the very end. And so the next favorite one is this MAC blush in Angel. It is a super, super pale pink, almost lilac shade. and this was gifted to me by a friend. Let's swatch it if we can, if any shows up at all. Look at that. Look how light it is. Woo! That honestly looks like one of those powders that is like a pink powder that's popular now as like all over the face. Do you see that? You see how much lighter it is? But I surprisingly really like how this looks on my skin. It is kind of powdery, but I just think it's super pretty. And I haven't reached for it in, again, a very long time because it is one of my favorites, but it's not like my favorite. The next two are my favorites. And when it's a special occasion or I feel like using something fun, those are the two that I reach for. This, because it's like a distant third, I don't reach for it. And I'm kind of missing it now. Now this makes me want to wear it. So I'm excited to use that one as well because it is so different from any of those other ones I've swatched. Yes, I realized I was in fact dumb because I just went to my own Instagram page and looked at a picture of all of my blushes. And I forgot about this one. This Wet n Wild Mellow Wine Blush. Oh no. I washed my hands. Some of these washed off. I'm sorry about that. But this is the very old packaging. Since I got this, they have reformulated, or maybe not reformulated, they've changed the packaging twice. So this may look a little different from the Wet n Wild blush that you may know and love. What's funny is that this used to be my favorite blush. I was obsessed with it, but now looking at it, I'm like, how was I obsessed with it? Like, the imprint isn't even gone. It doesn't even look like I used it that much. But I used to use it so much. Anyways, let's swatch it. It is kind of like a dusty pink. There is definitely shimmer in it, but it might just be on the top layer. And it is almost like a corally hot pink. Yeah, look at that. Look at that pigment. I'm going to re-swatch Milani Luminoso just to get a comparison. So obviously Luminoso is more of a coral. This one is more of a dark pink, which is good. You know, at least it's not a hot pink. There we go. So I would say it's most similar to the Kiko one, but it is a darker pink. It's not quite as hot a pink. And, which one do I think makes more sense for August? I think I probably should use this one in August. Even though I said, like, this makes more sense for August, but in terms of using blushes in the order that I like them, I don't like this one as much as I like this one. So I think that I'm going to have to switch to this one as an August blush and this one as a September blush. That being said, I am also excited to use this because it has been probably even longer than since I used this one that I've reached for this, because as much as I used to love it, the past few times I remember using this, I don't think I liked it. Like, I was kind of disappointed and also confused about how this was the blush shade that I used to love since it had changed. So it's entirely possible that I decide to declutter this. I don't know how I feel about it. I think part of it is that it's quite dark. There's a lot of pigment. There's a lot to it. And that is just not... It's hard to only have a little bit of the blush show up. So I'll need to play around with it, see how I feel about it. But yeah, do you guys remember this blush? Do you have this? What do you think of the Wet n Wild blushes? The formula, really good. I remember thinking that, like, for a drugstore blush, this is excellent. But yeah, this will be the next blush that I move on to. August, September, October. And then I think I'm going to save my last two blushes for the final update of the year, just because otherwise that's 5 blushes. That's just like way too many to do in one update. And even though 2 isn't very many for an update, I think I can also talk about the year as a whole in that update and what my plans are for the next year. So that is it. Those are all of my blushes in my collection. I think I had 12 powder ones, right? That's how this worked out, 1 blush per month. And I have decluttered 4. So we are going to end off with probably 8 blushes. Who knows? Maybe I will declutter one of these. Maybe I'll declutter 2 of them. But we are looking at now under 10 powder blushes. So that is excellent. Now, don't forget, I do still have this Hourglass one, which I mentioned, which might get decluttered at some point. And then I also have these 2 other blush palettes, but I didn't want to include them in the project because they are so new. I've had these for 6 months and I love them. These were a present. I know I shouldn't be bringing more blushes into my collection, especially while I want to blush roulette, but it wasn't entirely my choice. So maybe in the future, if I decide to do a project where I focus on items I love but never reach for because I feel like they should be saved for special occasions, maybe these would be included. But yeah, I did just want to mention that I also have these blushes. So that is it. Those are the focus blushes for the next few months. I highly encourage you to go on a blush roulette if you have not tried it before, or any other category of makeup. This has been so effective, like just as effective as any of my project pans, easily, although it has had a slightly different goal and also outcome. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and let's talk about a book that I've been reading lately. This book is called The Return of Faraz Ali by Amina Ahmad. I have this on my radar because the author of one of my favorite books, Fatima Farhid Mirza, she wrote A Place for Us, recommended it super, super strongly, I don't know, on Instagram, like 2 years ago maybe, and since then I was like, oh, well, okay, I guess I have to read it now. I'm not very far in, about 70 pages, and it's, you know, over 300, so there's a long way to go, but the world building is great. Like, I really feel immersed in the story. It takes place in Lahore, Pakistan, and it is about a policeman who was sort of plucked out of a, I don't know, like unsavory neighborhood and grew up sort of aspiring for better, but he was kind of kidnapped from his family, and so his mother has spent her life looking for him, and he has always sort of felt that pull to this area. It's called the Mohalla, and he has just been assigned to go to that area. So I have not got yet to the point where they meet. I'm assuming they will, but there is like political intrigue. There's a lot of corruption within the police force and within the political elite, it seems like, but the characters are very well drawn, and yeah, the world is just so rich. So I'm really enjoying this so far. It's not quite A Place for Us level, but it is good. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you next week. Bye!